Steve Dotto here, and we are going to talk about Rogers One Number. Now, Rogers One Number, since it was released, has become one of my favorite services. In fact, whenever I'm talking to anybody in Canada, I always ask, who's your mobility carrier? If they use Rogers, then I tell them, are you using Rogers One Number? And if not, I go through this whole spiel. So I'm just going to send them to this video now, so I don't have to go through the whole spiel for them each and every time. Here is essentially what Rogers One Number is all about. Rogers One Number installs in a web browser on your computer your mobile phone, allowing you to make and receive phone calls from your computer in your web browser. Now that could be your desktop computer, it can be your notebook, or it could be both because it installs in the browser so you can have it running in multiple computers at the same time effectively. The cool thing is when you're making and receiving phone calls using Rogers One Number on your computer, it doesn't count against your plan. It's brilliant. So no minutes count when you're making calls within Canada, anywhere within Canada, long distance or local, as long as it's within Canada. So that, for most of us, is a phenomenal cost saving. Since I've been using Rogers One Number, I've never once gone over on my minutes, yet I'm using my phone more than ever. And the reason I'm using it is I often sit at my computer when I'm working, and now I have access to my phone here on my computer. I don't have to always reach for my cell phone every time somebody calls me. So here's how it works. You install Rogers One Number on your computer. It installs an add-on into your browser of choice, and it'll also install a little menu bar item like this, so we can at any point ask it to display the phone. If we say display the phone, it then pops up a browser session with the Rogers One Number running within that window, and that's what we see happening right here. Now, it gives us several tools beyond just making phone calls, but of course, phone calls is going to be what we're going to primarily use it for. But it also allows us to manage our other mobile phone type communications. Most importantly, short text messaging. Now, since I got my iPhone, I actually moved over from the BlackBerry. I send less text messages because I'm not as good on the touch screen as I was on the old BlackBerry keypad. That's the one thing I miss on my old BlackBerry. Well, with Rogers One Number, I can now send and receive texts here on my computer screen. So if I just pop up the text window, I have the ability to write text to anybody, any number, anybody in my address book, send them text using my keyboard. So now I'm a much more effective texter. I'm back to kind of sending more texts. I still find it a very good way of communicating. And imagine if you're a small company that's got 5 or 6 people out there with mobile phones and you've got one central receptionist that's kind of coordinating things. Instead of having him or her texting people on an ongoing basis, they could be using an interface like this for sending texts from the computer, no charge against the account, plus much easier for composing the texts. I really like that feature. So we've got this window here which gives us a summary of all of our different communications, primarily texts. The next window along is the contact, the address book. Now, it's not working 100% in this session. Oh, it's just loading. Isn't that nice? It sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. It takes a little while sometimes to coordinate. And every day it asks me to synchronize my address book. Like all internet-based address books, it's less than optimal. It tends to duplicate addresses, and sometimes it's not online. I have a lot of names in my address book, so occasionally it takes a little bit of time for it to load, as we just saw here. It works really well about 70% of the time. 30% of the time, it's rather disappointing. I don't expect the folks at Rogers One to make it work that much better anytime in the future. It's just the nature of online address books. And it doesn't really bother me that it's not the most robust of address books because I'm on my computer. And hey, guess what? I've got my regular address book there. It's not a big deal for me to just copy and paste a phone number out of my regular contact list into the Rogers One phone. So that's not that big a deal. So if we take a look here, we see all of my different tools for actually making and receiving phone calls. So this is the phone interface itself. We have previous numbers. We have a dial pad that allows us to make calls. And we also have the settings here. The settings, let's spend a few seconds talking about the settings because if you're going to use your computer as your phone, it's a good idea to make sure you have a good audio setup so that you're making phone calls and hearing them properly, not using the regular speakers and the microphone within the computer, which tends to be fairly tinny. I like to use something a little bit better. So if we go here in the audio settings, we see that I can choose any audio device that I've hooked up to my computer to use with this. Now, when I'm making and receiving phone calls, I like to use a headset like this. This is maybe a $60 USB headset. This one's a Logitech one. I think that's primarily a gaming headset, but it can be used for a lot of different things. It's nice because it keeps my conversation somewhat private because I've got the earmuffs on. It also gives the person at the other end of the conversation better quality than I would be getting from my normal computer microphone. And it also reminds me that I'm on the phone. It's kind of just a nice physical reminder as well. So I like to use that, but you could use any of the devices that are hooked up to your computer. You're not tied to that one device, but you're going to choose them from this menu here. I'm going to go back into the dial pad for a moment. We can, of course, dial numbers here. We can copy and paste them here into the dialing window. But there's another feature here which is kind of compelling, which I actually haven't used myself yet, which is the switching call. Shows you some of the cool capabilities of this product. This will allow you to, in the middle of a call, if you've received it on your computer, transfer it to your mobile device. Now, as I say, I haven't done because I've never wanted to try it out. I've never wanted to use anybody as a guinea pig. My friends who've used it say that it works fine, but those same friends tell me that the address book works perfectly all the time as well. So I don't quite have faith in it. I will try it out fairly soon. Now, the actual practical application, day-to-day using it, I'm sitting here working away and a phone call comes in. Let me show you what happens when a phone call comes in. Now, I've got Skype hooked up here, so I'm going to just dial in my phone number from Skype and make a call. Please call. Skype is letting me down. Skype let me down. It's so sad. Maybe Skype knew that it was showing a competing telephony application. Okay. I'm signed back in on Skype. This makes for fascinating video, doesn't it? But it's also the real world. Sometimes stuff like this happens. I'm going to dial my number. Now I'm dialing. Let's see if it works. Skype's dialing. And there, this is exactly what happens when you receive a phone call. Just like your mobile phone rings, now your computer rings with caller ID, and we can answer the phone right here. But here's the cool thing. At the exact same time, simultaneously, it's ringing through on my mobility device. So I have the opportunity to answer it on either one of those devices, should I choose. That, to me, shows how cool it is. And of course, the other thing is when you're making a phone call from this, not only does it not count against your minutes, but the people's caller ID on the other side is going to display your number. So as far as they're concerned, you're on your phone. And you're on your account. You're not necessarily on your phone, but you're on your account. Overall, even with a few little warts where sometimes it's less than consistent, I think Rogers One Number is just a terrific application. If you have a Rogers account, I would encourage you to install it and start to use it right away. As I said, since I've installed it, I've never gone over on my minutes once, but I'm making more phone calls. In other words, I'm communicating more than ever using my mobile phone, and I think that is a winning combination.